back, Realcomm Live. It is late in the day 3, well actually 2. We have pre-con. Exhibit hall's slowing down a little bit, but we still got people here. Conversation's still going on. Always amazes me the ups and downs of a conference with the big energy rush in the beginning and then the crescendo probably end of day 1, and then everybody goes out and does their things, and then day 2, people are maybe a little hungover and coming in and getting back, but it's always fun to see the people, the true troopers who are still walking around asking questions and having fun. So I've got 2 great folks with me today, Kevin Smith and Therese Sullivan from Niagara, or Tridium. We're going to be talking about Niagara, who not only have they been great supporters of this conference, but quite frankly, Tridium has been with us every single day of our entire journey on the next generation of smart, connected, high-performance, interoperable, safe, sustainable buildings. The tagline keeps getting longer, right? And I say that because we, to do this journey of enterprise and smart buildings, we needed, think of a mall with, big stores and little stores. We needed anchors to help us fight the fight and get the message out. So I think of, Yardi on the one side, on the enterprise, and you guys on the smart building, and eventually knowing that enterprise and smart buildings would come together. It has been a great journey, and your support over probably close to 15 years now is very, very much appreciated. So, all right, so let's start with the conference. You guys have been at lots of them. This is the first one that were major, out of the pandemic. Let's start with Kevin. What do you think?
Oh, it's been a great conference. And it's been great to talk with so many customers and business partners and people in the real estate community, find out what they're focusing on now, what their COVID experience has been like. And actually just great to reconnect with everyone.
Yeah, I know there's protocols and everything, and we respect everybody's opinion. Handshake, in fact, we had little buttons that said, 6 feet, fist pump. My inclination was always handshake, but then people would do this, that's fine, or elbow. But yeah, people were glad to see each other again. It was evident. Therese, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's been a very good conference. It's more intimate crowd, but at the same time, the people here are some familiar faces, some new faces. I feel the conversation advancing.
Yes, very quickly.
Very quickly with
we don't have to push as hard anymore.
Yeah, that you have to. You've been hosting the conversation for decades at this point, and to see the delta and the new things that we're talking about in software companies, the Microsoft and Google being here, and what they're adding in terms of their cloud.
Yeah. Well, and I understand you had your best year ever in 2020. In the middle, okay, how and why?
It's amazing. So we talked about it yesterday in the general session, how sometimes challenges bring innovation and growth and resilience, and we've seen that because really just the innovative spirit of people coming up with new devices. Coming up with new devices to detect bad things in buildings, thermal imaging cameras that can detect fevers for people entering
we have
the office.
Three symptoms, attributes of your health in 30 seconds, right?
And so what we've seen is people taking these new devices and technologies and integrating it in with Niagara, because as you know, with Niagara you can connect to any device and control it and build that into your smart building solution. And so we've seen that, and we've also seen, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday too, when COVID hit and nobody could work in the building, they realized, wow, somebody needs to manage our building, and we have to do it remotely. Yeah. And so
the remote maintenance is what pushed it all.
So so most of the people I think represented at this conference who are really focused on smart building technologies,
forward thinking,
they were good, but all these other people realized, oh my gosh, we need to do something. And we need to do something quickly, and so we've seen just the demand for our product.
Well, congratulations! You were one of the few companies that did well last year, but congratulations! Couldn't happen to a better company.
Yeah. We put up the the speedometer as a metaphor on that is that really Tridium was founded back in, I think in the 90s. And it took
96.
about 10 years.
I think we want the
Oh,
other
we
one.
lost the,
Yeah,
we took about 10 years to get to 200K.
so we got.
And then
actually,
in
we
the
can
other
see it right
10
there.
years,
So
and then,
210.
for since 2010, we went the other 800K. And we're feeling, again, it was the best.
Wait, you went 800,000 new devices in that short of a period?
The 10 years of
Wow.
new instances of Niagara in the field.
So we are well over 1 million now.
So we're well
all
over
the
a
world.
million all over the world. So we kind of did that as our one. We passed 1 million. We have a counter on the website that counts every time the license turns, and we passed 1 million this year.
Well, and what I heard a lot, and again, we've been talking about this forever, was even, the people who think about a smart building or next generation building, and they read a magazine or something and they see a shiny new object and they go do this and they go do that without thinking about maybe a strategy, right? Like a continuity or a system that can aggregate everything. And then those who don't think about that within a couple months realize they're in this corner and that corner, and that brings them right back to Tridium saying, uh-oh, I think we need to pull this all together. Has there been an increase in awareness in that, where they know that all these shiny objects, different applications they want to consider, that's good, but you don't have that conversation until you get your hardware, network in place, and then your operating platform in place. Are people understanding that more and more now?
They do, because the question they get to is, how do we speak to all these existing systems in the building?
Right.
And and because we're vendor agnostic and because we're open and we're flexible, they realize that we're the platform to use to connect to everything.
Wow.
And that's how they can then bring that extensibility to the cloud or wherever they want to take it.
So there, and I loved on Anand's slide about the trouble. I forgot the first bullet point, but then it went resilience and then it went resurgence. So you're already in the resurgence stage, and I loved how he showed the 4 decades where it started with a catastrophe that we thought the world was ending, and guess what? It wasn't. And that we're now just coming out of the pandemic, and can we ever believe that it will ever totally be back to normal? I don't think it'll go back to total normal. I think there's going to be some changes. But I do think that once we get through this, if we learn the lessons, that I want to be able to manage the building remotely, and if more people realize that, then we can see that resurgence. But one of the things that was really interesting to me was during the pandemic, major cities, New York one, we had 6% occupancy, and yet the energy consumption stayed the same. So that meant many, many buildings in that city were unprepared, not from the remote management standpoint, but to dial it back. Didn't have a carburetor, right? Did you read that story by chance?
I did.
So what do you say to an industry that says, look, things come up and down, things happen. We have to have more precise ways of managing these properties. What's a Tridium response to that story?
Sure. So that was a little bit more complicated because part of the reason that they didn't dial it back was they were worried about what do we do if we don't condition the space? Will there be Legionella and mold and all this bad bacteria growing in the building? So they weren't prepared from that perspective.
Right.
But also, we do have really good data that many of them didn't have smart building platforms in their building.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or didn't have that ability to remotely manage it and
Right.
remotely manage its security, or didn't
So
have
it
that
was the
turned
remote
on.
management aspect of
It's
it.
the remote management aspect.
And so I think through that experience, they got it because they got all the bills, right? And
Think
so,
about it. You're a little uncertain if the rents are going to come in because nobody's using their space, so your revenue is being impacted, and yet your expenses. I mean, one of the first things we had to do when we pivoted, realized we weren't having a conference, is we had to stop spending money, right? Otherwise, that's not a good thing. But the expenses kept coming.
Correct. And so also because of that, now there are smart sensors to detect all those bad things that can happen in unconditioned buildings. So now people are ready. And they're starting to think about that. What if there's some biological bad stuff in our buildings? How do we prepare for this next time?
Right. So based upon where we were pre-COVID, what you've experienced during COVID, what's next?
Well, I was going to mention worldwide too. That was New York, but one of they want to keep the footprint in the small downtown district, but they're a thriving, growing company doing integrated design, MEP, et cetera. So more people, more productivity in the same amount of space. So they want to be able to flex space it, and they want to do remote. That ability to not have a system integrator on site every time they want to change the lighting and the HVAC flow. They've got the chilled beam.
Isn't it funny how some parts of the world that you don't expect would be innovative are kicking our butts?
Very innovative. And Anand brought up the flexible space, how we're going to go, and I agree. And they are using Niagara for the remote management of flexible space, so you don't have to do a truck roll every time you want to do something new with your building. In Italy, the case study I've been working on in Piedmont region, near Switzerland and France, is a cogen big energy plant that's also using the waste gas from the glass factory that's also in the town. And it's a city project. It's the city of Cuno and the glass factory. So they're doing really super interesting things to keep their...
But necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Yes.
So as a country, U.S., we'll keep Canada out of the conversation for a second, have we lost our drive for innovation when compared to all these other countries around the world? How do we stack up?
I don't know. Maybe it's like food, like...
Maybe like what?
The food, like Italian food. Everything is really climate driven and environmentally driven.
And that's why we traveled around the world to Asia, and we went to Europe and went to the Middle East, because early on, you just think that everything is happening in the United States, but boy, did we find on our travels that,
you have to learn.
that the innovation going on in Singapore and Shanghai and Seoul, South Korea, in Tokyo, and now you're saying in these other countries. I would love to stay really close in touch with you to understand those case studies, because RealComm Live, once we're done here, we pack up the studio, we go back to our Friday. I don't get all this great gear in our studio, although I think I'm spoiled now, so we're going to have to figure something out. Mary, just tell them to leave the screen and we'll get it back to them. I'll ship the screen back to them. Don't worry, they don't have to pick it up. I got it. RealComm Live coming along. This has got to be on next month's or next week's RealComm Live. But all kidding aside, I would love to bring in these case studies from around the world.
Yeah, and we're bringing them to Niagara Summit 2020.
So we got a couple minutes left. And part of what's next is 4 years it will be since your last. So Tridium does your events every other year. Where's it going to be?
It's going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Great.
Next April. We're really excited about it. I think
this
it's going to be
April.
Yep, this coming April.
Right.
I think it's going to be the best summit ever. I mean, we're going to have a lot of really exciting things to announce.
New products. And now we're still in COVID, so people are going to come from around the world, because I know it was a pretty international event, right? I mean, will you have a lot of people? Because we lost a lot of our international, but hopefully by April we're further down the road.
Yeah, I think we're hoping, and I think we're monitoring the situation closely.
Well, if not, maybe bring a couple people in remotely. We've been doing that all day long and getting pretty good at Teams and vMix and all these other crazy products.
I think we'll be on the same route.
Yeah, very cool. And then, can you give us some teasers on what some of those things are?
So Niagara is known for integration flexibility.
Right.
And so what we're doing is we're continuing that story at the edge and to the cloud. And so we're going to have a lot of exciting announcements to talk about from those perspectives.
Right.
Other cool thing is, you mentioned innovation. Our customers are so innovative. And what I like to say is we present a tool set or a canvas for artists to build amazing things. And
you do. Your P.S. Your secret sauce is not your technology, although it's great. It's your community.
Yes,
it is.
I mean, I saw that first time I went to a Tridium event, and I go, look at how passionate they are. They're hooking up drinking fountains and fire hydrants and anything they can
bear
get
traps.
Bear traps. Yeah.
So really, we try to get out of their way and provide them more integration options.
Wow.
And I mean, they're just some brilliant minds who come up with great ideas that we could never think of. And so we're trying to extend that and give them more options.
You've enabled them.
And so we have a lot of exciting announcements.
Well, let us know. We'll help promote it. So I got two favors to ask. number one, when we're done with this and we get it uploaded to YouTube, get it out to your community, hashtag, Realcomm, IBCon 2021. And then number two, we've got some really cool COVID techs, which I think COVID tech, will go away and it will move into the indoor air quality tech thing. And the reverse polar ionization, and I'm not 100% sure they're Tridium enabled yet on the network, but Gallatin Air is here and a couple others. I think the IAQ lab is still up before they shut it down. Maybe just go talk to them and see if there's a way to get that on the network, because having a little bit more of the air quality devices on the network as we get better at detecting microbial organisms or whatever we call them into the air. Aura Air is another great company, and I'd love to see them part of the Tridium ecosystem. So we can take the air filtration and MPS. How about the moldy filter in the air conditioning vent that's been there for 20 years that was here way before COVID ever hit us? So I was never a fan of air quality indoors because I thought I saw people not paying attention, and to get more of the products of the IAQ products into your ecosystem, I'd love to see that. Maybe even a couple of these guys showing up at your event.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
I'll make the introduction. So with that, thank you to two great guests on our show, but a great company, Tridium, and thank you for the support for I think it's probably close to 20 years now. And a shout out to Mark Peacock, who started that relationship, who was here, who got a Lifetime Achievement Award. We were waiting for him to hit 20 years in the industry, and this was the year. So thank you both, and thank you to our audience. Have a great day.